marketing genius, and she does a lot in her community. She has a community called Toronto Business Babes, which helps with education and supporting women. And not only that, she has her own brand, Modern Collective, where she helps with events and coaches and people taking their personal brand and having events and getting people to come to them. And so she's got so much experience. She also has like a travel agency. So this girl is an entrepreneur, and I'm really excited that she is here to share her wisdom with you and her story. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I'm so pumped to just like share and chat and yeah, share all my knowledge.
Yay, we're gonna soak it up.
I love it.
So Lauren, let's talk about, because I don't really know your journey. So when you were younger and you were a kid, who were some of the strong influences that you had in your life?
Wow, that is okay. No one's ever asked me that question before.
Oh.
Like that. I've talked about it before, but no one's ever said who was a strong influence. So first and foremost, my dad. He was an entrepreneur. He used to own, I don't know if you know the brand Indian Motorcycle, but he owned the brand like back in the 90s. It was like Harley Davidson's competitor. It was like this big thing. And he has always been an entrepreneur. He went on to be a business coach. He's written a New York Times bestselling book. Like he's always just been like a super badass. And I always knew I wanted to be just like my dad. But he also would say to us growing up, I don't care what you do in life, I just want you to do it for yourself. If you want to become a janitor, I want you to own a janitorial company. Or if you want to become a massage therapist, own your own spa. Like he would always let us do what we wanted, but always would push us to be our own boss. So him, obviously, and then in his world, he had a lot of very like-minded people. So I grew up with the likes of like, he was friends with Bob Proctor, and John Assaraf is my uncle, and like just really cool people in my world that I've always looked up to. So getting to be honored to have those people in my life have always been my people, but I don't have like a celebrity or anyone that I looked up to. I was very fortunate to have those people in my close circle.
Wow, I'm like kind of blown away a little bit. No one's asked you that question, but I've never had that kind of an answer. I think that's incredible, and it speaks volumes to who you are now and why. As you were younger and you had this freedom to like be who you are, and like, did you feel like there was a lot of pressure to figure out that, and how did that go for you?
Yeah, it's actually so funny. My parents told me a story a couple years ago where, so I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and there's 3 girls and a boy. And when I was about 3, maybe 2.5, my dad, he was a big guy, like 6'2", I think, like just like a larger dude. And he always used to like look down at us and be like try and scold us if we had done something wrong. And every other kid would be like, Daddy, I'm so sorry. I will go give myself a timeout. Would just like completely crumble to his look. And when I was about 2.5 or 3, I gave the look back to him. And they were like, oh God, like we have our hands full. So they actually had to hire a child psychologist to come in and teach them like, how do we work with this child? Like, how do we get through to her? And I remember my dad saying or my parents obviously telling me the story. And my dad said, how do we get through to her without breaking her spirit? How do we tame this child without ruining who she is? Like he had the foresight and the forethought to think we need to give her some boundaries and we need to teach her what's okay and not okay. But she is this little bit of a wild child and we want to never tame that out of her. So the pressure, and yes, I did feel like, oh my God, I had to do all these big things in life, but I always felt really blessed that I could do it on my own terms. My dad always pushed me, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. But I never felt like the pressure in school to achieve. And a lot of those pressures that a lot of kids do feel, I never felt that from my parents. It was more like, follow who you are and just do the right thing and be a good person.
That's so beautiful. And even as a parent with young kids, that's amazing that your dad was like that, because I think it's so easy to want to conform our kids to what we think they should be and how they should be. And being able to take those strong personalities and mold them to still have that, like you said, not crush that. I think that's so amazing and very cool that you had that kind of influence in your life. That's amazing.
Yeah, I feel lucky. Have you seen that meme that says something like, my neighbor saw my daughter streaking through the backyard and he came over and said like, I had one of those, she'll challenge you, but she's going to be the CEO of a company one day?
No, but I love it.
It's so true. I literally came across it the other day and sent it to my mom and she was like, yes, that was you. I was like, well, thanks for pushing me. Like, I appreciate that you gave me the platform to be myself. And it's just been really cool to figure that out and always have their support.
Yeah. And it just goes to show the value of having a strong family behind you and the ability to still be yourself. Like he pushed you, but he pushed you in who you were, not who he wanted you to be. And that's cool. So on your journey of, okay, you have all these ideas, like what kind of jobs did you do? What was part of your process?
I actually was on a podcast this morning and someone was asking me that same question. So when I was deciding what I wanted to go to school for, again, my dad would say, I want you to have a business background, like whatever you want to do, I don't care, but you need a fallback plan. So he pushed business. He was like, please go to school for business. And I was like, that's fine, but it needs to be creative. I'm a creative goofball. I like to like travel and do all these crazy things. It needs to be aligned with that. So one day we were sitting, when you're in high school, I think you're in like grade 11 and you need to start to think about what you want to do for the rest of your life. We were going through the like college and university programs, and we were looking at like location and what kind of school I wanted to go to and all this stuff. And I just remember coming across this one program that was marketing, and I knew marketing was like fun and creative and business and it could take me places, but I wanted more. And this program had an event planning specialization inside of the marketing diploma. And so I was like, I need to do it. I need to just go and see if that's what I wanted to do. It was creative and fun and all the things. And he was like, okay, there's a fallback. You'll have your marketing, but you can do your fun, creative thing. So went to school for it. I ended up actually hating it. I was like, I never want to become an event planner. This is terrible. It's just like not what I wanted to do. But I very quickly realized it was actually the teaching and the school structure that I didn't like. I loved the event side of things. I loved the creativity and the demand and the high stress and 100 different moving parts. And I loved all that. So I graduated from college, and then I was doing promo marketing. When you're at a music festival and they're handing out like a secret deodorant, that was me. Or like we worked on the McCafe coffee campaign. So we traveled all through Ontario, like handing out free coffee. Dream job. Like it was so much fun for a 20 something to do.
Yeah.
And then my dad got sick. So he had a stroke when I was 21. And I went from traveling the province, like being a kid, to being a caregiver. And I remember at that time thinking like, I need to show up for my family right now. I need to let go of any of my like travel dreams or any of that type of stuff and just be at home. And then bartended and did all that stuff. And about a year-ish later, I ended up getting a corporate job doing events in the financial industry. Loved my job. Again, at this point, dad was stable. He was back at home, and I was traveling the world, and I was doing these big conferences and incentive programs and golf tournaments and everything that you can think of as an event planner would be your dream I was working on. And then obviously I stayed there for about, I think it was like 6 years, worked my way up to VP level, and then ended up just like needing to leave. It was no longer the environment that was in alignment with me. I didn't feel like I had a future there. So then I like stepped on a couple other jobs to like get out of the industry. You can't like one day just be like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and make it happen. I was like 26. I had no idea what the world had in store for me. And then ended up becoming an entrepreneur like a couple years later. So
that's awesome. And I think people watching can relate to that. And there's so many people I think that get into these corporate jobs and corporate spaces. And like you said, it's awesome and it's great and it's exciting. And then there's a point where it's almost like you've outgrown things, or you're not challenged, or you have this pull to do your own thing. I think a lot of people, I hear that a lot, but there's so many people that get stuck and they stay at that job until they retire. So what would you say to someone that's watching that's, oh my gosh, that's me. Like, I'm ready to go.
I think for me, it was, so when I was working corporate, I was working for one of the big banks in Canada, and I was making this sexy salary. It was like my dream job. But there was days I would not want to get out of bed. And I was like, I don't want to go to work today. And I think once you start to hit that point when you're just no longer feeling like you're enjoying what you're doing, and don't get me wrong, there's days in my current business where I'm just like, I just want to crawl back in bed. But when those start to happen over and over again, and it's starting to become a theme, and you're getting really irritated, or you're like reacting really poorly to little things that shouldn't upset you, you almost have to listen to yourself and say, okay, there's something bigger at play here. Why am I reacting this way? I wouldn't take my advice. I literally got mad at a response one day and quit. And I was like, I'm done. My mom was like, you're what? I'm like, I just quit. Like literally, I have no plan. I have no savings. I have no nothing. I don't know what I just did, but I was just done. But twofold, it forced me to be successful. It forced me to figure it out. But I would say to people, if you're sitting here thinking, this is me, I'm miserable in my job, I would journal a lot of it out. Like, figure out, what do you not like about your job? What would make you happy? Because I think a lot of times when you're in those situations, you're like, this is just not making me happy. But we neglect to get clear on actually what does make you happy. Maybe it's like a conversation that needs to be had, or the company is great, but your role within the company isn't fulfilling you and you just need to change a conversation, or whatever that is. I think in corporate, we get way too scared of having that tough conversation, and we don't communicate because we think that we owe our time to this corporate company that is paying us. Little do we know, we can actually have those conversations and say, hey, this isn't feeling super great for me. Is there another opportunity? Or maybe this is the end of the road. And I think we need to be more open with communication. I wish I had been way more open with communication my entire corporate career.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece for everybody, is learning how to communicate and truly learn how to be authentic. Because when you're not communicating, you're keeping a part of yourself quiet and you're adapting and molding. And so there was a point where you communicated very well and you just walked out.
I'm done. I'm out.
But I think that's what happens.
It is 100%. I still think, like, looking back, there wasn't anything wrong with my boss and the job. There was nothing wrong. It was a me thing. It was an internal thing that I couldn't have even communicated what I needed to make me happy because they couldn't give it to me. And I think at that point, I was like, okay, I need to be done. Like, my soul is dying working in the corporate financial industry in the role that I was doing. I loved my team. I loved the company. I still talk to some of my old team members. There was no hard feelings. I just was being super true to myself, and that, like, this isn't what I want and this isn't who I am. And I think that's what a lot of people don't follow, is they're just like, but I love my work environment, or I love my coworkers, so I'm never going to leave.
They get comfortable with that. Yeah. So you went from comfortable to uncomfortable, because starting being an entrepreneur isn't always comfortable. So maybe just talk about some of the resistance that you faced in the beginning as you were navigating your way through.
Mm-hmm. So I went from corporate to working for another friend of mine that owns an event company. And I was lit up. I was back in the industry that I loved. I was just traveling again. Things were feeling so good. But there was still that pull of, this is not my own business. This is not my own energy and passion. And I still to this day love the women I worked with. I went to their baby shower. There's literally no hard feelings at all. And they knew it too. They're like, you need to go follow your passion. But when I took that jump from corporate and I went entrepreneur or back into the event space, it almost felt like the people that I was friends with in corporate were like, ooh, who's Lauren? Like, they suddenly didn't want to have anything to do with me, which, hey, sure, I understand. There's like a whole backstory to that, but I understood at the time why there was the resistance. And I didn't understand at the time. I understand now. I remember sitting there thinking, what did I do? Like, why does nobody want to work with me? And why does nobody want to pick up the call? And why, like, where are all my friends? And I think it's because at the time I was doing something so different than they were used to seeing me do. They were used to seeing me follow that corporate structure, wearing my little name tag and following the company branding and guidelines and all that stuff. And now all of a sudden I was doing these crazy things that they'd never heard of me do before. So they felt weird and they were like, I don't know how to interact with you. I don't know who you are outside of the role that you used to be in. And so I think there was some resistance on their end and on my end to interact with them. And I think it was just like this really weird flow of things. And then I think too, from the people in my personal life, I had my cheerleaders that were like, you could go sell ice to an Eskimo and I would support you. And then there were people that were like, we're going to see where she goes with this. We're going to wait and we're going to sit back and we're going to support her, but we're not going to get involved. We're going to clap her on from the sidelines, but we don't want anything to do with that. So it's taken some time. I'm almost 2 years into the entrepreneurial journey, and I'm now starting to see people reach out and book that call with me or hire me to do their event. And it's taken time, but I've been authentic to myself and so true to who I am the last 2 years that people don't have a choice but to either love or hate me. And it's because they love or hate who I actually am and not the role that I was playing.
Oh, that's so good. And that whole piece of being authentic is is what this is all about. Is you have to be true to who you are and to your brand, and eventually that will speak for itself, and you don't need to try and sell everybody on it, because inside of you that you're doing what you were created to do. And is that not the best feeling?
Oh my gosh, it's such a cool feeling. Like I was saying, that call or that email I got on Monday, it was a holy shit moment. Sorry, I hope I can swear. But
It's okay.
It was one of those moments where I was just like, it took me 2 years, but it, like, I don't know, it just like weight lifted off my shoulder, and I was like, okay, it's starting to make sense. It's all starting to happen. The first year and a half was a freaking whirlwind, and I did not know like where I was going or what I was doing, but it's all starting to make sense. And it is a really cool feeling. You can breathe a little bit easier.
That's awesome. And I know you and I talked in one of our first chats about just the idea of having a lot of ideas and a lot of things that you want to do. And you had given me some good wisdom, but maybe talk about that, like the people that are like, okay, but I want to do this and I want to do this. And how do you find your lane?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. It took me a while to find my lane. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to be the Jill of all trades. I wanted to literally do everything. I didn't want to like pigeonhole myself. And the coolest part is I never had to. I still am very much a Jill of all trades. Like, we have a travel agency. We are very involved in like the PR industry right now. We do events. Like, we can do it all, and the community side of things. And that's just who I am. But I think staying true to who you are and the things that light you up is what's going to help you find your lane. Understanding too that the things that you're good at and the things that you're passionate about, they do have space to coexist. You can do both. You can create a career out of both, but make sure that you're not trying to force yourself into do something that you think you have to do. What actually feels right for you? What is in alignment with who you are? And listen to that and run very quickly towards that. And don't be shy to just like authentically be like, this is who I am. This is what I love. This is what I'm focusing on, and just go with it.
Yeah, that's good. And two, like, I think in saying that, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's this space where it's all the things that are in you and all of the like lanes. And sometimes it's, you just have to start with something and then have some of those things come as you go, but there's still room for it.
100%. I remember when we started the events and talking about doing events, I was like, I actually have no idea what I'm doing. I can plan an event, I can do any of that, but to run a business, like, I had no idea what was like coming ahead. Even to this day, like when I say that I own a business, I'm like, what? Like, it blows my mind that this is like where we've come to. And the same thing when we were launching the travel agency, people are like, Lauren, you're getting travel agency certified in the middle of a pandemic. And I was like, yes, I understand that I look completely crazy right now, but this is going to make sense. But because I trusted in myself and I was like, I know what I want and I know I can be successful at it, it makes sense.
Yeah. So for you as an entrepreneur, as a person, what are some of the fears that you have as you go through things?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, and there's so many coming up for me right now. Just, we have exploded our team. Like, a year ago, I was a team of 1, and now I'm a team of 6. So with that comes pressure to hit the paychecks. Like, that's a big thing. Also, you almost become a mentor when you have a team below you. They come to you, and I love, this is my favorite part about having a team, is they come to you with concerns and questions, and they want guidance, and they want you to be able to teach them the things that you learn. But with that also comes a lot of pressure. You're never off. You're never just like completely shutting off from your business. And then another concern too is when you have a client that doesn't necessarily mold with your company, and just like understanding that you have to build a reputation that's going to withhold anything that anyone says about you. There's been people that have tried to drag my name through the mud, and it's been very unsuccessful, and it just makes them look stupid. But it happens. It happens in business. You end up, personalities don't always match, and you have to be okay with that. But those are definitely two of like my biggest fears, is like letting my team down and not being the boss that they need. And then obviously you want everyone to like you and for everyone to be happy with what you're doing, but that's just unfortunately not the case. So yeah, just like going through those hard conversations, I think, is definitely coming up for me lately.
Yeah. And probably learning who to align yourself with, and who to, like, having those hard conversations on the other end, thinking, I know this is going to go in this direction, but I don't want to even partner with that. So I got to say it now.
And setting a firm boundary too. Even joke, like, me from a year ago, I would have put up with so much crap. I would have just been like, it's okay. And I was like, this like nice girl. And I was like, yeah, everyone can walk all over me. Whereas now, if something happens to me, I'm a little bit more casual. But if something happens to my team, or like a client missteps and says something wrong to a team, I go mama bear and I'm like, no, you are not talking to my team like that. And I almost get aggressive about it. But I almost think you have to do that. You have to protect the integrity of the people that are working so hard for your business and put that boundary in place. So this is not acceptable. And I would have not had those conversations a year ago. I would have been like, it's fine. Don't worry, guys. We're going to work through it. Whereas now I'm like, like we're cut. We're done.
Yeah. And it's so interesting how you said that you wouldn't do it for you, but you would do it for your team. And probably in doing it for your team, it's going to spill over into for you too, which is like amazing way to be stretched in life.
Totally. And it's been really cool for me to see, because we have had quite recently a couple conversations that have not been comfortable to have, and to see how my team reacts to it, to see them say to me, oh my God, you genuinely care for my happiness. And I'm like, what? I've had to say to my team multiple times, it's me and you, not against our clients, but as a team towards our clients. It's not the client and I against you. And I think to like understand what that boundary is and setting that like very firm relationship, it's been really cool to see my team thrive and feel like they can make mistakes because they know I have their back. And I think that's a really cool thing about owning a business and having a team work for you.
Yeah. So as you have stepped into this space, you have all these things going. What is the legacy or what are the things that you want to leave people with, your clients, your team? Like, how do you want to make people feel?
Oh my gosh. I always want to have people feel better after they've interacted with me than they did before. Whether it's just like being goofy and putting a smile on their face, or reassuring them of their value, or making them feel like they can't accomplish anything. I always like to go that extra mile for clients, for my team, for anybody involved in my life or my business. I like to go that extra mile. I like to make them feel special. Whether it's, I don't know, at events, we've like branded pillowcases, we've done like gifting, we've had like juices delivered to their room, just that thing that like makes you realize that this person's actually thinking about me.
That's awesome. So I know you do a lot of like mentoring, but you also, if someone was like, oh my gosh, like this girl is running a business, she's doing all these things, like how can they get some of that? How can they get in touch with you? What kind of programs do you have?
Yeah, I have. So there's a couple different ways. I'm super active on Instagram. I have people messaging me all the time, just like asking me to be on a podcast or pick my brain. And I really do love to share my messaging, my story. Like, I think if it helped me, it'll help somebody else. But we do have a program called The Sponsored Entrepreneur, and it's an 8-week group coaching course. So essentially at the beginning, you come through, you're like, I want to add brand partnerships to my business, but I have no idea how. We'll take you through the whole process in the course. It's one-on-one with me. I'm live on all the calls, super, super interactive. And then there's, of course, like working with us one-on-one to either do your brand partnerships or to help you plan an event. We can do both, but those are the ways that people can work with us or pick my brain. I actually hate the word or the phrase pick my brain, but yeah, that's kind of how.
No, that's awesome. So I would encourage all of you to reach out to Lauren, and she really is as authentic as she seems she is, and she will take the time for you. Thank you so much for being here. And for anybody that is deciding this is good, Naomi, you keep hammering this. If you want to keep the recordings, it's totally worth it. And I think you'll really get value from watching them. But Lauren has some extra little strategies that she's going to share for those of you who decide that you want to be a part of that. So thank you so much, Lauren.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm excited.